The Canadian housing bubble just went bust. Is the United States housing bubble next to go bust? Hey, everybody, we're going to talk about all that and more. You're watching Bull, Boom, Bear Bust. My name is JJ, back here with another dose of economic reality. So, Canada saw a massive run up in home prices, just like a lot of the world also witnessed massive home price inflation, ultra low interest rates, all the other things that came about in 2020, the shortages, and ever since then, we've seen skyrocketing home prices. Canada, even worse than the US. Here's what's happened though: home prices in Canada dropped 1.7%. That's not much, but that's only 1 month from November or from October to November. Before that, from September rather to October, it was 1.6%. So in just 2 months, home prices dropped 3% in Canada. You think that's not a lot, but again, that's only 2 months. Go back to the peak, which was March 2022. Prices have fallen now from the benchmark by 17%. And that's $162,000 price drop, right? So if you bought at the wrong time or at the peak, you could be down potentially over 160,000 on your investment or underwater. So if you're someone that had a mortgage, it's not a good thing. If you're a cash buyer, it's still not a good thing, but not as bad as having a mortgage that's underwater. So the median now, or the benchmark, what they call it up in Canada, and these are all Canadian dollars, by the way. The median now, the benchmark is 788,200, and that's the level that we saw, or they saw, I should say they, because I'm in the U.S., so I can't say we. I guess if you want to consider it North America, it's still we. Anyways, the level that they saw back in 2021. So prices have dropped to 2021 levels, dropping from the peak, which was March 2022, 162,000 Canadian dollars price drop there. So pretty massive, pretty significant. Now let's go ahead and go over to some charts here. And this is out of Wolf Street. We see the median home price spiked up here in the summer of 2022. Now, a lot of people were saying that that was the housing bust after it came down, but there was speculation out there that it could have been just seasonal, that the summer of 2022, or the summer of 2023, rather, the following year, this last summer, they were saying that that could go back up again because of summer demand. Well, of course, we're past the summer now, we're into December, and we look back at the summer of 2023 and we see it did not eclipse the summer of 2022. Therefore, we have final confirmation that it looks like the housing bubble has went bust. Now, whenever we see this pattern here with a major spike and a big drop down, we rarely see the housing market recover and then go back up. There's also speculation out there that rate cuts, like are expected to happen here in the US, could also happen in Canada, and that could somehow reinflate this housing bubble. So let's talk about that. And I think that's very unlikely. Dropping rates at this point, I don't think is going to rescue the housing market. It could make prices go down more slowly, but you see, here's what happens, and here's why cutting rates after this enormous run up is usually too little, too late. Not just usually, but every time you look back at history, it's pretty much always the case as far back as we have documented history. The reason is because when you have rock bottom interest rates and bubbles that get inflated, the cost of living gets inflated with it. And what happens when the cost of living gets inflated is people load up on debt, right? For a few different reasons. One, it's very enticing to take out a mortgage or to borrow money at low rates. Like that 2.9% mortgage is very tempting, even if you think home prices are too high. So you get that mania of people that want to rush into an investment just because rates are low. So then what happens is the debt climbs. And at these debt levels, even lower interest rates is not going to solve the issue. It's not going to erase the debt. What will erase the debt? Well, bankruptcy, of course, things like that. But if you file bankruptcy, then your credit's shot and your chances of buying a home not so good. Now they could completely change the way that credit works and that money lending works and make it so where a bankruptcy is not a negative. That would be something wild and crazy that we've it would be unprecedented. So outside of something like that, just unforeseen types of changes to the way money is lent or loaned, we're not going to see the housing bubble get reinflated again. That's the way I look at it. Please let me know what you think down in the comments. Will low interest rates reinflate this housing bubble and have prices go back up to new all-time highs, not just in Canada, but in the US and in many parts of the world where we saw similar interest rate policies where rates were rock bottom at the floor, for a decade plus, especially here in the US. And all these central banks, they seemed to have worked in synchronicity with one another, as if they're all communicating with each other and kind of either copying off each other or having one kind of master plan, maybe at the top. And when you look at the bigger metropolitan areas, this pattern also is very similar to the overall price action that we saw throughout Canada. Here is Toronto, huge spike up, summer 2022, drop, summer 2023, did not recover. A similar pattern over in Vancouver, not quite as pronounced. In fact, the prices in summer 2023 came a lot closer to the peak in 2022 than we saw in other cities there in Canada, but still, of course, did not eclipse the peak that we saw. Therefore, confirmation that the housing bubble has went bust. Now, when it comes to predicting or trying to guess what's going to happen with home prices in 2024, there are some things that we need to think about. And when I compile all these factors and risks and influences on the housing market and home prices, I come up with further deflation in the housing market. Now, there's things out there that could cause the housing market to crash. That would be a complete implosion of the financial system, including the mega banks. That would be, again, something unprecedented that would be very difficult to say is going to happen. I think it's possible, but it's very difficult to predict the level of support that the banks will receive, of course. So you have to think about other factors. Let's just talk about what's happening right now with rents. Rents have taken the biggest drop here in the U.S. in 3 years. We talked about this in our previous report, but I want to tie it in with this video because this has to do with home prices. So when it's cheaper to rent, people are less likely going to be pressured into buying a home. So that's going to be less demand in the housing market because rents are cheaper. So, of course, people are more likely to stay in a rental when it's much lower to rent versus to buy. And that puts further downward pressure on home prices. Something else is there's a bill right now in Congress that's being looked at. Now, the jury's out if it will pass. I strongly doubt it will pass. But it would prevent corporations and institutions and hedge funds, all those big dollar entities, it would prevent them from coming in and buying single family homes. If that were to happen, you could see a huge drop off in demand from that. Now, again, I don't think that's going to happen, but it is another kind of wild card that's out there that if it did happen, could cause a surge or a big pull away in demand from the housing market and therefore much further price action to the downside in the housing market, right? So a lot of different things to keep an eye on. Also, when you have home prices that stop going up or that are deflating, you have a lot of economic activity that decreases with that, and a lot of people involved in the real estate industry, including even furniture stores, home improvement stores. You see a big drop off in the economy and the demand for home improvement items, appraisers, loan officers, of course, real estate agents, all those people that are involved in the housing market. So very interesting to keep an eye on this here and what's going to happen here in 2024. I'd like to hear your price predictions for 2024. Now, here's something interesting. A piece of news just came up here on an alert that I have set up here. And what I said just a few minutes ago, actually, I understated it. It's actually the biggest rent drop in 4 years. Let's go over to this article here. The tide turns in the housing market as asking rents fall by the most in nearly 4 years. So landlords are starting to cut prices on rents because they're seeing such a huge drop off in demand. And if you've been on this channel, you knew that this was going to happen. I always said here over the past at least a year that the fourth quarter of 2023 was going to see some big changes starting to happen. So this is going to continue into 2024 and beyond. And I think rents are likely to drop even more because of the deterioration in the housing market bleeding over into the broader economy, into jobs. and lower interest rates or a drop in interest rates will not stop these other massive deflationary forces, in my opinion. All right, and there's some other information here to go over real quick. Median asking rents saw their biggest year-over-year drop since February 2020. That's according to Redfin. Now, rents are down 2.1% year over year, and this drop is the biggest since February 2020. Also, there's been a surge in construction as the number of completed apartments is up 7% year over year. So we have these combination of factors that are leading to declining rents. Also, starting in 2020, we saw this big work at home boom, and that caused rental prices to surge up as well because so many people were looking for new places to work at home from. Now the work at home thing, it's still here for the most part, but a lot of companies are calling their workers back into the office, so something else adding to the drop off in demand for rentals, right? So a lot of different factors to think about. Rents will continue to go down, in my opinion. Again, I'd like to hear from you down in the comments. What do you think about all this? Home prices in Canada, home prices in the U.S. Will the bubble be reinflated, or will lower rates be too little, too late? And what do you think about rents? I think rents are going to continue to fall. Either way, we're going to stay on top of it here for you with all the latest financial economic news. Please make sure you like, subscribe, and comment down below your thoughts. And we'll see you again here very soon. Thanks, everybody. Bye now.